Cek satu, cek 137. Baik, untuk teman-teman yang masih di atas boleh mengisi baris depan terlebih dahulu karena public lecture akan segera dimulai. Silakan teman-teman yang masih di atas boleh merapat ke bagian depan. Diingatkan sekali lagi untuk teman-teman yang masih di atas untuk segera mengisi bagian depan, terutama di bagian tengah, karena public lecture akan segera dimulai.
Eh, Selamat siang, bisa minta perhatiannya sebentar, akan dimulai kuliah sebentar lagi. Minta tolong duduk agak ke depan ya, Em, supaya supaya kita kasih respect juga ke tamu kita. Dia jauh terbang 24 hours, no 31 hours dari Toronto ke sini baru nyampai. Please maju ke depan. And he's really inspired economist in the world ya. Tolong dong maju ke depan, terutama maju aja, nggak akan apa-apa kok, nggak terjadi apa-apa. Bagus, terima kasih ya.
Baik, silakan teman-teman yang masih di atas untuk mengisi bagian yang paling depan karena public lecture akan segera dimulai. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to UE Area Public Lecture on Robots and AI, a New Economic Era. I hope you are all having a wonderful day. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Diaz from the Faculty of Economic and Business, batch 2021, and I am your host today. Before we start the public lecture, it's our pleasure to officially welcome Mr. Teguh Tanto as the Dean Faculty of Economic and Business University of Indonesia, Mr. Fit Adrisen as the head of Department of Economics, Ms. Prani Sastiono as the head of Regular Undergraduate Program in Economics, Ms. Isfandiani PhD, head of International Undergraduate Program, Ms. Fauzia Zen, coordinator of FAUE Public Lecture and moderator of today's public lecture. And our speaker today, Prof. Daniel Trevler, J. Douglas and Russ Grain Chair in Competitiveness and Prosperity, Broadman School of Management, University of Toronto. And also all of the audience here. First off, let us start the public lecture with a welcoming speech from Mr. Teguh Tanto, Dean Faculty of Economic and Business University of Indonesia. Mr. Teguh, please give your statement. The time and place is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon for distinguished guests and also student, especially Professor Daniel Trevler. I don't know if this is correct spelling or not. Douglas and Ruth Grand Chair in Competitiveness and Prosperity. Pak Fit, Bu Fau, Bu Iva, Bu Prani, and our guest also from area, Ibu Lili Yang Ins. I was her assistant when I was young. And all of our students here, and it's both from International Undergraduate Program, also from the regular program. Welcome for the first public lecture for this semester, because we just start our semester in this Monday, and this is the first public lecture. And thanks for area for inviting Professor Daniel Trevler to come to Jakarta and give a public lecture here. And thank you for area for your support. And this topic is very timely, issues about the robots and AI, new economic era. I think this is very, very interesting topic. And I think the area already launched the book about the robot and AI. And I think it's freely downloaded or not. Yeah, freely downloaded. I already downloaded, just read at the cover and the introduction, not yet read the very complete, but it's very interesting because a lot of chapter. This is like the chapter, isn't it? Chapter by chapter, written by a very expert all over the world about the robots and AI in the new economic era. But I think before we talk about the AI in the new economic era, maybe we also already know about disruption in our education about the AI, especially launch of the ChatGPT. This is disrupt our education, and our faculty of economic and business just released our white paper about ChatGPT and how we respond, and how the policy, how to optimize ChatGPT for improving learning for students, and still considering about the ethics. So this is AI already changed our life in education, but in the broader sense, AI and robot will change the future or current economic landscape. So today is very lucky we have expert professor from University of Toronto, Professor Daniel Trevler will discuss about this issue. And I think this is good opportunity. Let enjoy, let get insight, and I hope that all of students maybe can ask whatever you want to ask, and I hope that Professor Daniel also can provide very, very insightful suggestion or comment about this issue, and also how students to prepare, what kind of skill that students have to be prepared for this new era, for the era for robots and AI in the new economic era. So we need preparation in the term of skill, and also the student have to to improve your skill in the competition is not only with human, but you have to compete with the other thing, robots and AI. But this is the good chance for all of us to listen from Professor Daniel. And once again, enjoy the public lecture. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Teguh, for delivering your speech. Now it's my pleasure to invite Ms. Fauzia Zen, PhD, as the moderator of today's public lecture. Ms. Fauzia, time and place are yours.
Thank you, Dias. Thank you, Din Teguh, for nice welcome remarks. Also, thank you for Ibu Lili Yang In, who invites Professor Den that we can have him today with us. Thank you to Economics Department, Pak Fit, and especially Ibu Iva from International Undergrad International Program, yeah, and also Ibu Prani from Undergrad Program that co-hosting this public lecture with area today. Again, thank you very much. I'd like to invite Professor Daniel Trevler to come to the stage for the lectures. Thank you. I'd like to get your shots. Yeah, I'd like to introduce you briefly. I think many of you already know him, but we are very lucky that we have Professor Daniel Trevler today with us. He is Douglas and Ruth Grant Canada Research Chairs in Competitiveness and Prosperity, and also Professor of Economic Analysis and Policy from University of Toronto. He is a very prominent and inspired trade economists in the world, yeah, due to his contributions, fundamental research in the productivity, innovation, and investment research. He is also advised Global Affairs Canada on national policies toward FDI, and he already received some of the very monumental distinctions, including 2016 Killam Prize in Social Science. It's Canada's Nobel Prize. The 2016 Bank of Canada Fellowship Award and a Canada Research Chairs, and all three major awards of the Canadian Economics Association. As a Torontonian, is it true? Yeah, yeah. He holds degrees in economics from the University of Toronto, Cambridge University for master, and UCLA for PhD. Class, this is Professor Daniel Trevler.
Can you hear me without this, or do you need this? Or you need this. All right, sorry to hear that. All right, well, thank you very much for having me in this absolutely beautiful campus, and just on an absolutely wonderful day to have a talk about AI. Let's get right into it, because I know you've been waiting for a while. Let me ask you a question. It's a simple question, and with not such a simple answer. So, what is AI? Anybody with some thoughts about that? How would you define it? Some people are scratching at the back of their heads. Anybody want to give a shot? Partial answer. You're being shy. I'm told the Indonesians are not shy. Okay, give me one piece of it. Yes. Come speak to us much louder. Perfect. That's a great start. So AI is a set of algorithms that are pattern recognition. And at a business school like this, we care about pattern recognition because pattern recognition is the same thing as making predictions. That's the first piece of it. What else do we need for AI? It's algorithms. Yes. Oh, did I see something up there? What else do we need for AI? Come on, that's not a hard one. We need data, and thirdly, we need machines. AI is packaging machines, algorithms, and data at scale. So what I would like to talk about today is about AI in the context of international trade. So AI first appears in 2012, at least commercially. I remember going to my first talk on AI in 2014 and looking at it and going, that's not new. I've seen that all in statistics before. Little did I know my prediction machine was pretty bad. I'd like to know in this talk, has AI impacted international trade? And the answer is that there's been almost no research to date on that topic. And finally, I'd like to examine what impacts trade has had on what international trade economists call comparative advantage. So what impact has it had on trade flows? What impact has it had on the number of goods available to us? And finally, what impact has it had on creative destruction? Creative destruction, let me just get a sense, how many people of you have heard of creative destruction at this point? Okay, so this is definitely a term that you want to get firmly ingrained in your head. It's really an old term dating back from the 1940s. Creative destruction is the process by which new goods are invented to destroy old goods. And those new goods get patents. The owners of those new goods get to earn a lot of rents. And then after 20 years, the patent expires and new people can come in, building on the old goods, and build even better ones. So this process of creative destruction, of creating new goods that displace old goods, is fundamental, we now understand, to long-term growth. It is what makes places like the United States grow year after year at very rapid rates. It's not the only way of growing, but if you're a country at the frontier, this is the way to grow, through innovation, and that innovation typically involves creative destruction. Okay, so why have we not looked at the impact of AI on creative destruction to date? And the answer is simply that we're missing the data. So let me tell you how I came, sort of the penny drops moment, the moment when I realized, hey, we could actually do a lot with the existing data. And the answer that I came upon sort of rested in just looking at my phone for too long. Some of you may have already done that, right? Looked at your phone for too long. And realizing slowly but surely from stories that I was hearing from companies like Tencent in China or from Google in the United States, listening to what they were doing with my phone and thinking, oh my God, they know everything about me. They know, for instance, that this phone usually sleeps next to another phone in Toronto, where I'm from, and it's not sleeping with that phone anymore. If this phone ended up sleeping next to somebody in my hotel's room, for instance, Google would know that. And Google would say, Dan Trevler is having an affair. And people having an affair are bad credit risks. And that would affect my insurance. Now, that's illegal in the United States, but it's not illegal in other countries. So everything we do is being tracked on these phones, including international transactions in something called digital services, about which we know next to nothing. So now we have data which tells me on every single one of your phones, I not individually, anonymously, I know what apps you have. And from that, I can back out what trade is happening. How much of the digital services that you're consuming on your phone are coming from the United States, from France, from China, from Japan, from Indonesia. So we can now talk about digital services trade, and that's the first part of what I want to talk about. And after that, we can start talking about the impact of AI on that digital service trade. So I'm having a little bit of problems with my clicker. So let me start the first part of this talk. It's just about giving you a feeling for what does digital service trade look like? Because for many of you, you have a vague idea of it, but you may not know exactly a lot of the details. In the second part, I'll tell you what AI is, how AI is influencing this trade. And then in the third part, we'll talk about creative destruction. So, is there a better place to be pointing the clicker? Okay, so let's start with this picture. This picture is about the internationalization of digital services. Digital services are traded in a way that, say, automobiles or standard manufacturing goods were not traded. What I've got on this picture, you see Facebook on the top line, is telling you what share of Facebook's downloads are happening outside of its home country, the United States. And what you see is that over 90% of what Facebook does, its customers, are not in the United States. Imagine like General Motors. The vast majority of what General Motors sells until recently was all in the United States. It had a really bad European operation, which it eventually sold. And then it started to hook up with Shanghai Motors and sell them to China. But until then, most of what General Motors did was in the United States. And by and large, that's true for most manufacturing multinationals. Not so in this digital services space. It's very, very different. Google, 90%, 85% of its customers are outside of the United States. And then we have this drop off to the next three. Do you see any patterns? Who's the next three? Yeah, they're all Chinese companies. ByteDance is, of course. What is ByteDance? Yeah, TikTok. So TikTok has had some success depending on regulations around the world. And then we have Alibaba, who is mostly business to business and financial, which you don't see very much of probably. But Tencent, do you all know what's Tencent's major software? Games. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said games. I'm such from an older generation, but I'm right. It's not games. That's where they make a lot of their money. What's their other big piece of software? You don't have it on your phones? How come I'm the only sucker that has it? WeChat. Wait, none of you have WeChat? WhatsApp. WhatsApp is part of the Facebook. When you see Facebook, that's WhatsApp in there. I see. So I'm the only one in this room that has WeChat. Don't you want to be tracked by the Chinese government? Huh. Okay. This picture gives you a sense that the American company, that there's only two countries that are doing most of the big stuff, the US and China, and that internationalization is mostly the Americans, not the Chinese. All right. When you think about digital trade, you have to start shifting your thoughts about regulation. So we want you to think of this implication of digital trade. In this picture, let's be clear here. How does Google make its money? Ads, totally ads, right? Two pieces of software. Do you know those two pieces? If you have them on your phones. You've tried to delete the cookies many, many times. One of them is up here, double click, and the other one is adware. These are the things that direct traffic to your phone. I don't know if you've ever noticed, This is a crazy, crazy thing that happens. Have you ever scrolled through your phone and then there's these, very momentarily, there's a blank spot where an ad's supposed to be? And then you start to think, wait a second, how are they able, in the time it takes me to scroll down my phone, to pick an ad which is tailored to me? That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. That's what they're doing. They're saying there are University of Indonesia students who are listening to Dan Trevler's talk, and we're going to give them an advertisement about The Economist. Or something crazy like that. It's really, really spectacular. What you see from this picture is Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Twitter dominate the advertising space. China is not there for a different reason, but let's hold that at bay. Anybody notice how that picture has changed in the last year? Big change? One of those companies is not like it used to be. Pardon? I'm sorry that I can't hear. Facebook? Oh, yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so out of fashion. I just ignore everything that Elon Musk says. I apologize. Right. Twitter, but this is not stocks, this is advertising, which has also fallen off for Twitter. But a bigger fall off was Facebook, because Facebook lost like literally half of its value, went down by 70% at one point. Because Apple changed its privacy settings. And now Facebook can't get access to all the information they used to get from Apple. Facebook lost 70% of its value. They're not the first ones to do that, by the way. Anyways, the main point of this picture is that where these companies are making their money is advertising. Again, I'm just struggling with the clicker. Where is the actual transmitter? Down here? All right. This is a strange picture. In Canada, we call it a hockey stick, because it's sort of like straight with a hockey stick at the end. When you look at the share, when you look at all the downloads in the world and ask, what percentage of those downloads are by companies that operate in all of the 80 markets, which is in my data, all of the markets in the world? The answer is all of the downloads are basically coming from companies that operate everywhere in the world. So this is a big change. General Motors used to have to set up distribution networks in Nigeria, in Indonesia, in Vietnam. Those days are gone. These companies operate everywhere. Not only do they operate everywhere, but if you take a look at the number of products they produce, I think our battery's a little low. If you take a look at the number of products they produce, like you think Facebook, it's a product, right? But it isn't. What else is Facebook? WhatsApp, we already said. Instagram. Line is separate. Okay, we'll come back to it. There's a few more there. Most of these companies have about, at a minimum, 10 products. These are big companies, and they don't randomly pick products. Like, why did Zuckerberg force Instagram to sell itself to Facebook? Do you know why? Facebook is for old people. Instagram is for the next generation. Zuckerberg could see that, and so he forced Instagram to sell to him. It was a very ugly negotiation. But you know how the old people are with the young. I have a deal for you, and you're going to give it to me. All right, just to give you a sense, I need to watch the time, 3 o'clock, so we need to watch the time carefully. Where are these companies making the money? Because we already saw an example of WeChat that you turn to gaming, and I get that. That's where you're coming from, but that's not where the money is. Here is, in the mobile app revenue streams, 490 billion of it is money that is coming from digital advertising. Just to break it up, 40% comes from search, 30% from banners, 25% from these videos. We'll come back to this search because search has been in the news lately, right? Social media accounts for 37% of it, but now that Facebook has taken this big hit, that number has fallen. Mobile apps, 60% of this revenue. So that thing in my pocket is generating $300 billion of revenue each year. That's a big market. If anybody wants to come up with a better app, you should come to me afterwards. All right, where we spend, where the spending is varies by country. The United States spends about $100 per man, woman, and child. China is about $600. China is about $100, and a quick calculation for Indonesia is it's $14. So I think the Indonesians know something that the rest of the world doesn't know. The other two major categories of where you make money in this space are from streaming subscriptions, like video and music, or games. And the last, video or music. And the last one is from gaming subscriptions and in-app purchases. But the lion's share is advertising. Okay. Among some of the issues that we're dealing with, let me skip this. When you're under the age of 30, you don't even know what the word privacy means. It's not part of your vocabulary. We know from polls that sometime around the age of 30, you start to care about who's following you. That'll come. Give yourselves time. I'm sure that you're going to get to 30. One of the difficult things about thinking about how valuable this has been to us is, on the one hand, we're getting these incredibly valuable tools like WhatsApp to really reduce our cellular bill phones. On the other hand, we're playing games which are highly addictive. And the evidence to date is, if I could simply prevent you from turning on, is Facebook big here? What is the big social app here? Facebook. Okay, so Instagram we know for the young. If you could turn off Instagram for the young for, say, 2 weeks, you'll be happier. Flat out. It's an addiction. It would be better for you to be using cocaine. Okay? It's an addiction. People who are paid to stop using Twitter, when 2 weeks later, they don't use it nearly as much afterwards. They're happier without it. Something to think about. And the other thing about this space is the markups are very, very large. Okay, I think that may be all I want to say about this. So I've told you a little bit about what this space looks like. Next, I want to tell you about where AI fits into this. Okay? So here's a look. It's a little dated. It's from 2020, and the stock market has, for tech and growth stocks in general, has really plummeted since 2020. But just to give you a sense, back in 2020, these were the 8 largest companies by market capitalization, global market capitalization. I think you'll recognize all of them. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Facebook, the big five. Then we have Tencent, Tesla. What? I don't know what Tesla's doing up there. And actually, if you bought Tesla 3 months ago, it's up 70%. So if you're like me, you're probably crying alligator tears. And then Alibaba. We know what Alibaba is, right? It's a business-to-business platform. Who's the former CEO of Alibaba, just so we triangulate? Jack Ma. All right. When you look at this picture, what is it that you see? First column tells you that they are worth a lot of money. These companies are worth over 20% of the US market, of US stock market. They're huge. The second thing is the number of AI patents. Almost all of these companies have a very large number of AI patents. Tesla doesn't because it's such a specific product, but Elon Musk is heavily involved in OpenAI, and you all know that OpenAI is, right, ChatGPT. Then the next thing to notice is in 2011, most of these companies were inconsequential. So they're rapidly growing. Then their nationality, yet again, they're all Chinese or American. So if you're Indonesian or if you're Canadian, like I am, you're going to be thinking to yourselves, these companies are controlling key pieces of our future AI, of our future intellectual property. Is it possible that in the future, all of us will be forced to pay huge royalties to Chinese and American companies? Incredible enrichment of those two economies, all to the detriment of our economies. And if that's true, when we think about trade agreements, how should we handle that? I know when I speak to my own government that I'm very clear on this, and I know when I speak to my own government, they always ignore me. But that's for another day. And then the final column, the final columns we've already dealt with. Okay, here's a new picture I made this morning. The Chatbot Wars. So all of you, how many people have followed the Chatbot Wars? Wait, let me ask this differently. How many people are planning ever again to write an essay by themselves? So 3 people are going to write an essay by themselves. The Dean, are you hearing this? Nobody's writing essays anymore. I would encourage some of you to develop an app which helps to detect chatbot fakes. All right. So I want to give you a sense for how important AI is to these companies by looking at what happened with chatbots. OpenAI developed a chatbot 3.5. It's a little bit of a hyperbola to say that it developed it, but let's leave it at that. Then, because Microsoft gave OpenAI $10 billion to help for the development, OpenAI is officially a nonprofit. Microsoft was allowed to introduce chatbot into their search engine Bing. They announced the beta testing of it would be available at 3:30 on February 6th. Look what happened to their stock price. It went up about $125 billion. So if you think that AI is maybe something obscure that isn't really doing much in the stock market, in 2 days, it increased Microsoft's market cap by 5%, $100 billion. On that same day, but after markets closed, Google, who's been afraid of chatbot now for quite a while, released their own version of AI-assisted, a chatbot-assisted search. And look what happened. Their stock also went up until somebody noticed that their chatbot was saying something wrong. Can you imagine a chatbot giving you, can you imagine a machine that gives you an answer without any references of where it got its facts from? Could you imagine it being wrong? It's hard to believe. Google made the mistake of letting people know that that's true. You should all worry about chatbots. It is fact uncorrected. Don't trust any chatbot. And what you see is once people saw that the chatbot had made an error, which to me isn't surprising, but for the rest of the planet it seemed to have been, Google lost $100 billion, 10% of its market cap. So AI is extremely important for these companies. Okay. The third thing that I would like to do, Lily, let's keep track here about 5 minutes. Third thing I'd like to do is more technical. I am not one of these people who spends their time preparing YouTube talks on these kinds of topics. My actual job is I use AI. I use AI a lot, and I use it to study large-scale databases of about 100 billion observations to try and understand what's happening with digital trade in services and what role AI is playing. So I want to show you a bit about that research, and I'll try to do it in a way that's non-technical and accessible. So the first thing that I do is I have available to me all of your downloads, not at the individual level, but at the country level, all your downloads of every app that's on the App Store and on Google Play since 2014. I know which companies own those apps, and I know where they reside. I'll call them exporters of apps. And I know who's using those apps. I'll call those importers of apps. And I know what categories those apps are in, like social media, productivity tools, gaming, etc. Okay, so the way that there's two ways of finding out. There's two ways of finding out whether AI is used in an app. The first one, which I've done but is not very helpful, is for each of your apps, there is a piece of software that you downloaded when you went to the App Store or Google Play, right? This little file that you then download and expand. And in that little file are many other little files, including files that are needed for AI, like TensorFlow. And we can track which of your apps actually has, say, TensorFlow, which is a classic AI utility. And we can find out exactly whether that app is using AI. The trouble is, most of our AI is not used on our phone. If it was used on our phone, we would be living in an entirely different world. I don't know if you know why. Can you guess why having the AI being done on our phone would be transformative? Nobody would be tracking us. Nobody would be tracking us. I've sat at meetings with high-level AI scientists arguing back and forth about how much AI we can actually do on our phones, because there are actually theorems which say how much our phones can do relative to how much is needed. So very few of your apps are actually doing the AI on the phone. Instead, they are sending APIs. They're sending requests to the cloud, and the computations are being done in the cloud and sent back. At that point, everything you do is being tracked. So we have to figure out a way of seeing which firms are using AI in their apps. We're evolving very quickly on this. Let's just say that I know for each firm, I know all of its patents, and I know for each firm if those patents are AI patents. And the next thing I do is to try and match up with the app. For each app, I have a description. For each patent, I have a description. I try to figure out, is that description on my app the same as the description of the patent? So this is a classic natural language processing problem. How many of you have taken an AI course? Okay. The dean was asking, what things do you need to know? Every one of my students can work with Python and go to GitHub and grab whatever AI that they need. Google offers you free services, as does Microsoft. It's time to learn how to use AI because everybody in your cohort in other parts of the world are using AI. Now, this whole thing about Chatbox 3.5 and how transformative it is, this is actually technology from 2018 that's been slowly improving. And that's the technology that I'm using. It's called foundation models. And just to give you a sense of it, this was an article from The Economist. It showed a foundation model. This particular foundation model is Google's foundation model, which is the one I'm using, called BART. And it asked BART, what does this picture mean? What is it telling us? I don't know if you can tell. Yeah, you can read it, so you know what it's about. Here is what BART says it's about. The roller coaster in clouds is a metaphor for the economy. Excuse me, I can't read it from up there. It is a fun, exciting ride that everyone loves until it crashes down to the earth, causing economic loss and recession. A market crash is the final nail in the coffin, leaving people reeling in its wake. This is why you should no longer be writing essays. It's amazing, eh? It's amazing they can just look at that picture and tell you eloquently what it's about. This is 2018. 2018. We're now 5 years later. Okay? I use this software to tell you whether an app is using AI. Okay? So let me go quickly through it. This thing called BERT is a bidirectional encoder representation for transformers. Whenever you see T at the end, like GPT, it's about transformers. I don't have time to tell you what they do, except to tell you it's time for you to learn how to use them. They're not hard to use. You don't need Chatbot to use these. Okay, what I want to show you is some simple conclusions. And this is work that would not have happened if Lily hadn't pushed us to start working on this project much faster than we intended. And this takes us to the final part of this talk. There's a lot of math here. Let's just look at this. Do I have a pointer here as well? Yeah. Pardon? Maybe I'll just show them. I'll show them the regression and. Yeah, I don't think I need to show them the modeling part because it's already 5 after 3. It should be okay. What I'm trying to do here. Sorry, I'm just playing with the clicker. Pardon? Oh, okay. I am going the wrong way here. Can we go backwards? 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 Past all of this? Backwards? Perfect. What I'm trying to do here is what's called a linear regression, a simple regression. I think some of you may have already started to study this. All I'm trying to do is understand how much Indonesia downloads of products produced in the United States or China are influenced by the fact that those goods from the US and China use AI. And the answer is, what you'll see in the yellow is it's a positive number, which is to say, if AI is being used in your app, it is a much better app. And you are downloading it a lot more. How much more? 6 times more. Imagine that you're a business and you have a new technology that allows your business to grow by a factor of 6. It's time to go to Silicon Valley. Right? That's a big growth rate. So we know that AI dramatically improves the quality of these goods that you're using. Could we go next? Quite a few. Let's keep going. That's fine. Keep going. Keep going. Yeah. So that was the main point of this. The next point that I want to make is that the presence of AI is substantially churning the products that are available to us. Okay, so let me show you an example of that churn. Next, please. In this picture, I'm showing you what happens when we compare AI and non-AI apps. So where it says entry, I'm looking at the entry of new apps. What we see is that where AI is deployed, 91% of the products are new products. Where AI is not deployed, only 66% are new products. So AI is bringing in a whole host of new products. On the other hand, AI is also leading to the exit of products. That is the creative destruction. What you see is where AI is deployed, the exit rate is 83%, versus where AI is not deployed, the exit rate is 49%. So AI is simultaneously doing two things. It's bringing us new products, but it's killing off old products. And the last question for today is that good or bad? And the answer, if we could go next. Let's go one more. One more. The answer on this table is given by just a few numbers. We have to do some fancy calculations, but at the end of the day, what this suggests is that AI has increased our benefits from using our apps by 10%, which won't be familiar to you, but from these types of calculations, we usually see numbers like 1%, 2%. AI is having dramatic impacts on the quality of our apps. All right, so let me summarize. If we could go to the next one. First message for you is you need to be thinking about AI in your studies. In my university, nobody does AI without the studies. Nobody does the studies without AI, whether you're an economist, even if you're studying accounting, you're learning AI so that you can figure out how to do better audits. Everything is permeated by AI. The place to look for data on AI, of course, is in this thing that you're carrying around with you all the time, is generating extraordinary data. It's marketized data. About a $500 billion business is being run off of the ads that you're being displayed. It's massive. And that 500 billion would not be happening without AI. In terms of, is this helping or hurting us? It's certainly vastly increasing international trade in digital services, an area that we never traded before. And it is leading to these big creative destruction effects. It's destroying goods, at the same time it's creating goods. And the net effect appears to be positive. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I'd like to ask to open questions from the students first. Bu Lili, no? Student first. 2 or 3 persons, please. Or I will pick you. Okay, we have students from various various courses they are taking this semester. Now, okay, please explain your name and from which department.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for being me here. My name is Muhammad Faturrahman, and I'm from Economics Department, regular. And thank you, sir, for your presentation here. And my question is really simple, actually. It has been said by Elon Musk that AI is far more dangerous than human every thought that every people thinks. And my question is just simple. What do you think will be AI being further dangerous for human being? And also you said that if apps had AI in that apps itself, it would be more beneficial. And what could be probably dangerous from that apps? And thank you.
All right. The first thing is never listen to what Elon Musk says. Will it be bad for humanity? Like all new technologies that come along, the problems we face are our ability to manage the technology. It's not the technology itself, but our ability to manage it. Right now, when you think about something like Lily's project on AI and employment, that's one feature of what you're saying. It's very important to stop thinking about jobs in traditional ways. You need to think about each job as a series of tasks. Let's think about a radiologist. When AI first came along, it knows how to read images and see if there's a tumor. So AI should have gotten rid of all of our radiologists. The easiest job. In fact, when you rank jobs by AI vulnerability, this is the most vulnerable. But when you break down what a radiologist does during his day or her day, three things. One is it reads images, which the AI can do, except now radiologists process millions of images, whereas before they could only process thousands. Second, the radiologist teaches technicians how to use machines. Third, and this is something that you probably don't want an AI to do, radiologists turn to the patient and say, I'm sorry to tell you, Mr. So-and-so, but you have stage 4 cancer. Two of those three things cannot be done by an AI, and we probably don't want them to do by an AI. Maybe in the future, but we're a long way away from that future. So that's to your first point. What jobs are vulnerable to AI? Jobs which a lot of the tasks, not some of them, but a lot of them can be done. And let me make the point with a simple image that you have in your head. When I ask you, what is the classic picture of a factory with robots? What comes to mind? What picture do you think about? What assembly line is it? A car factory. When you look at that picture, you're so looking at what's there, the robots. Did anybody ever stop to think about what's not there? People. And you think, oh, that's because it's displacing people. The reason that there are no people in those pictures are, if you put a person in that factory, and there's lots of things people could be doing in that factory, their heads would be decapitated by the robots. Robots and people do not work well together. We are now working on the next generation of robots that will allow us to take the tasks that robots take our job, take off the tasks that robots and AI can do, and leave the rest of the tasks for people. That day will come. Will be a day in which we no longer see those robotics factories the way we see them today. We're going to see factories that have both people and robots. Okay, and I apologize, I forgot the second part of your question, or unless we want to take another.
Okay, about the second question that I mentioned earlier, is that you just said apps. If it included the AI, it will be better apps. And what do you mean by that?
So it's time to step back to some larger questions which I've failed to address. We now know that monitoring people through our apps, and we saw, for instance, in the last COVID rebellions in China, how effective it is to monitor people nowadays. Incredibly effective. So the thing that I find most disturbing about apps today is the surveillance state and the threat it poses to democracy. That is what we as a society have to mobilize against. And we have a very long way to go.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Hi. Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Fadil, and I'm currently studying economics. I have a question about privacy here, because you mentioned that AI actually makes better apps, right? And but the problem is that to build AI, you need a lot of data, and data usually comes from users. And in Europe, they have policies like GDPR and stuff like that. So, and in Indonesia, I don't think we have that kind of law as far as I know. But if we implement that, and a lot of countries is trying to implement that, what happens to that? Because I think, do you think that AI? Do you think that limiting the how companies can collect data because of users' privacy can make companies less developing AI, if that makes sense? Thank you.
So the question is, first, how do I think we should manage the privacy issues? And second, what are the economic implications of them? Can I interpret that way?
Yeah, because if we are increasing policies about users' privacy, then companies are it's harder for companies to collect more data to train their AI, right?
Okay, so it's for sure true that GDPR has had a very significant negative effect on the ability of European firms to advertise. And so it's not surprising that we are not seeing any major European AI companies or in general scalable digital services companies. So that it's clearly privacy comes at a cost. When I think about privacy, the other big cost is that protecting our privacy for rare illnesses, I'll give you a specific example in a second, means that we can't find cures to those illnesses. So here's a to my mind, a really good example that shows you this role of privacy balanced against international trade. When we had this COVID epidemic, and I'm not passing any judgments here about government policy responses, the US allowed extraordinary spread of the virus, and China allowed almost no spread of the virus. When it came to developing a virus and then testing it, that the development of the virus in the US, because these were new viral techniques, right, messenger RNA, was done heavily through AI simulations. And then you had to take it into phases, trial phases 1, 2, and 3, for which you needed big populations, because for as bad as the spread was in the United States, there were still most people did not have it. So it would take way too long to finish the trial if you just randomly sampled people. So we had AI looking for people who were likely to get COVID so that we could speed up the clinical trials. In China, I'll try to keep my tone neutral here because I have my own biases, but among the problems that they faced was they couldn't do phase 3 trials because they didn't have anybody who was sick. No data. So China had to do its phase 3 trials in places like Brazil and Kuwait, right? And then, from pretty flimsy evidence, Brazil said that the virus was not very effective. Said that the vaccine was not very effective. It would never have passed U.S. trials. They then shipped it around the world to places like Indonesia, and you know better than I what the outcome of that was. So protecting privacy comes at a cost of us being able to develop new therapies. And we need to be aware that we don't want privacy only for the sake of privacy. That said, I'm less concerned about privacy. Maybe I should be more concerned. I'm less concerned about privacy than the way in which the algorithms amplify fake ideas. And I want to emphasize that Chatbot 3.5 is in that same category. I don't know if you know how Chatbot 3.5 deals with fake news. Do any of you know?
Not yet.
They have an army of people in Kenya who read through all of these questions and decide what's appropriate and how to answer them. Talk about employment, what are the employment implications? Actually, there's lots of jobs being created by AI. So I'm much less concerned about our loss of privacy, though I am concerned about it, and I'd probably take way more care about privacy than you do. But I'm more concerned about amplification algorithms whose main job is to get us engaged and excited and angry. If you're interested in that topic, there are many excellent books that have been written about it. I guess I would say Sinan Aral's book, if you're interested in marketing, is superb. Tim Wu, who's a lawyer, also very good. So there's several books about how we are drawn to screaming headlines and how that amplification of screaming headlines is what's perpetrating fake news. It's more complicated than that, but that's a whole other lecture. I seriously encourage you to read about how your information is is being pushed into your feed, because it's scary. And that, more than anything, is what's creating the biggest problem we face today, which is echo chambers, fake news, and activism based on this fake news.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone? Okay. We have two students. First, the female students, and then you. Yeah.
Okay, hello sir and everyone. My name is Saskia from the Saskia International Undergraduate Program Economics Batch 2021. Because I'm taking the Indonesian economic and also public sectors course in this semester, and I just wondering how the AI influence and also determined the public sector's policy over the time.
I'm not sure if I understand. You mean how is AI being used in the public sector?
How AI can evaluate or determine or influence the public sector's policies over the time.
I'm not sure if this is what you had in mind. Oh, did you have another question?
No.
Tell me if this is what you had in mind. Hold on to that microphone. How is society dealing with AI? Is a very, very important question. And Indonesia, like Canada, has elections, and those elections are swayed by how people are mobilized. To understand what happened in the United States, or with Bolsonaro in Brazil, or what happens in Russia right now, or Egypt during the Arab Spring, all of those are instances in which either our ability to organize was shut down through killing off the telecommunication systems that we have available to us, or by pushing fake news. So who we get elected in part depends on who is most effective in manipulating the fake news. And you have to understand that the AI is playing a central role in this fake news. So to be specific, you notice that Chatbot is 3.5. Why wasn't it 1 or 2? I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that. When OpenAI's GPT-2 came out, they were so scared about its ability to generate articles through bots that they refused to give the source code for GPT-2. Company is called OpenAI, and they refused to release the source code that they had developed. It's the first time they ever did that. This foundational models, or these new class of language models, and other things like GANs, the fake images that we see, all of these are going to pose a huge threat to our ability to manage what is true and what is not true. And it's going to give politicians either advantages or disadvantages in pushing through agendas based on nonsense. So what's the public policy response? We saw already China just passed a law. I don't think it'll be effective, but they passed a law which said that you have to know where this information is coming from. Is it generated by a person or by a bot? So we need to have much better real-time understanding of bots. You saw it in the Ukraine war. You remember that Biden has been telling us, oh, this is what the Russians are planning next? It's not because Biden is some sort of genius. It's because what the Russians succeeded in doing in Ukraine in 2014. In 2014, the spread of fake news, which we can trace from service to server, we know exactly what was happening in retrospect. Russia was giving us massive lies about what was happening in Crimea in 2014. And that, as a result, America stepped back and says, oh, it must be that the Crimeans want to be taken over by the Russians, because that's what the news is saying. Now America has smartened up, and I think other countries are going to have to smarten up and get the capabilities to be able to track the spread of fake news, because it leaves telling that tracking, I think, and we persuade companies like Google, et cetera, to get rid of these amplification models. I think we'll be in much, much better shape. But it'll be very hard. We have experimental evidence that says it can be done, but it's not going to be easy. That's my primary concern.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the great explanation.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity and the chance. My name is Abel Abraham, and I would like to ask about how AI can be more ethical. Because I just mindlessly scrolling through my Twitter, and I've come across a tweet that talked about how a person called Matthew Buttrick filed a lawsuit challenging the Stable Diffusion model, which is the text-to-image model of AI that creates new image from a compilation of many, like millions of image. He argues that it will violate the rights of artists, and also the last news that I searched that Getty Image also filed the lawsuit for this model. I just want to ask about your opinion about should people who deal with this AI development should be more or should think about the ethical aspect of how the model works and how they compile the data, because as far as I know, the data compiles through the scrapping method, and I don't know if in some countries it's going to be legal or illegal. And therefore, I would like to ask your opinion. Should they be more or thinking about the ethical side, even though maybe I think it would hamper the development, development speed of the AI itself? Thank you.
All right, Havel, you're asking me it's the broader question of ethical AI is huge. So maybe for everybody who hasn't thought about that, AI trains on data, right? But which data it trains on is very important for the conclusions it draws. Simple example, we could have had chatbot 10 years ago almost, a form of it. But we know that if we try to train AIs based on what people tell it, what it will learn is a stream of very ugly things, very racist things. So it's very difficult to train AI out in the wild and not expect the AI to tell you that Hitler was a great thing, that Muslims are all bad people, women are inferior. This is what comes out of training AI in the wild. To me, this is, for all of us, we would agree, it's a hugely unethical question. In addition, things like chatbot don't tell you where they get their information from. It's coming a little bit closer to what you're interested in. And so we can't fact check what you get from AI. You're the educated. You are going to be the ones who have to be especially sensitive to the fact that what you read is no longer certified to be true. You have to be, and the more you get an emotional reaction from what you're reading, the more you can be sure it's false. So just read your body signals. If it's really getting you angry, it's probably fake news. When it comes to artist rights, the issue is it comes back again to what are we training these models on and who has rights to those data. So we know, for example, that early on in AI, the US went to mandatory sentencing based on a predictive model of recidivism. In other words, they used AI to ask, are you likely, if we let you off, are you likely to go back to have another crime and go back to jail? And then we learned that the data we were training it on was highly untypical. It was data of ex-convicts, people who were very likely to have to go back to jail. So what data you train on is extremely important to the conclusions you draw. Should there be rights to the people, to that data? I believe in the United States there are rights, that this is an illegal activity. We're going to have to deal with enforcement. So I don't know how we begin to enforce it, but my guess is it'll happen through class action suits in the United States. How it will play out in other countries, I'm not sure. It's clearly unethical. Artists deserve to have payments for what they do. Only question is, and there is, by the way, already a lawsuit against Chatbot. I can't remember by whom, but I think by CNN. Because Chatbot is pulling CNN streams without any attribution. It's not like your Apple feed, or Yahoo feed or whatever, that says this came from the Washington Post. Chatbot doesn't tell you anything. So these are real ethical concerns. They affect the distribution of income, who benefits from other people's activities. It needs to be stopped. How it's going to be stopped, it's not going to be easy. Which comes to this big question of every new technology. In society, how are we going to choose to manage it?
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Especially, you can, of course, yeah. Especially, you can also pose questions, especially relations of AI and the trade. You are free. I just encourage students to really ask. Yeah, after we can accommodate like 2 or 3 questions, and first you and then you.
Okay, thank you for the attention. Now, as you said earlier, most tech companies are made and located in the United States as well as China. And as far as I know, both uh, both countries are kind of categorized as superpowers, like the dominant country in their own respective ideology. Like if I just simplify a little bit, I would say that the United States is on the more democratic side, while China is more on the authoritarian side. Now, as far as I know, both of these countries can affect their tech companies to maybe incentivize news that might affect politicians in other countries. So in our country, for example, in Indonesia, there has been a history of US backed coups or US attempting to influence Indonesian politics. Now, how much do you think an AI will be, how much big of a role will AI play in these countries trying to kind of manipulate other countries' elections in their favor? Thank you.
I'd be worried. I'd be very worried. When you think about something as simple as why has the United States not intervened with cyber espionage against Russia or against China? It's because I think we all understand it's because the U.S. is so advanced it doesn't want it doesn't want to play its cards. It doesn't want people to see how good it is. So we don't really have a clear picture of how good the United States surveillance system is and how easily it could manipulate elections abroad. But I would be extremely nervous about its capabilities. And so if I was Indonesian, I'd ask to become the 51st state of the United States. No. You should be worried about that. And it's going to be your responsibility as among the most educated people in this country to see past what you read in the newspapers and to try and figure out for yourself what is true and what is not true. Because if the United States chooses to lie to you, it will lie. And we've seen already that China is already doing that as well. The instances of Chinese, I don't know if you spend time in China. When you're there, the instances of using fake information is extraordinarily strong. Extraordinarily strong.
Yes. Next question. Perhaps last question.
Thank you. Thanks for an interesting presentation. You mentioned early on in your presentation just how international these tech and AI companies are, but also the dominance of the US and China in this space and how there's the potential for that to be leveraged against smaller countries like Indonesia. How you mentioned in passing that FTAs is one tool to kind of protect against this leverage being leveraged, but also in the hot issue of geopolitics and trade being used as a tool in geopolitics, you know, are we going to see a kind of CHIPS Act for AI to stop other countries developing a strong AI network? Is this going to become a geoeconomic tool, geopolitical tool, like we're seeing other kind of sectors of the economy?
So the two parts of that is what's in trade agreements that could be used to stymie other countries from developing AI. There's not a lot. One of them is, first of all, the state-of-the-art digital commerce chapters in trade agreements all have a preamble about privacy, which says we recognize that individual states will have social agendas that need to be met, and in no way is this chapter intended to prevent that development. It then goes on to say things like that are a little bit bad, like digital localization. You're not allowed to localize your data in your own country. You have to be able to allow it to be used everywhere. So that's a cause of concern. I would be more concerned about TikTok than I would be about data localization, but that aside. This idea of a CHIPS Act is a first order issue. That's what I'm currently working on. So I think that's a great research topic for students. how this will play out, sort of there's two separate things. One is the United States is going to try to prevent China from developing, 3 nano chips or AI-based chips, TPUs, TPUs, GPUs. How long they can keep China back, I have serious question marks. Maybe they could hold them back for a decade. Beyond that, I don't know. I mean, the major piece of equipment you need to be advanced is produced in Amsterdam, not in the US, a company called ASML. So this is not an easy thing for the United States to prevent other countries from developing. What is easier in periods of war would be for the United States to temporarily prevent other countries it doesn't like from having the technology. But it doesn't stop there. So, for example, that person I love to hate, Elon Musk, has a company called Starlink. Starlink is used by both Ukraine and Taiwan to help its military. Like that's how they get that's a big piece of their communications. If a private individual decides he prefers China to Taiwan, he could completely ruin the Taiwanese army. So once we enter this venue, we get into a very difficult position. The way I handle it when I'm in policy circles is to say, as long as there's a military man sitting at the desk here, there's no progress we can make on any issues. Let's kick this person out of the room and try to make incremental policy where we can. Let's try to find as many touchstones with as many countries that we do not like, so that when war starts to raise its ugly head, we have as many bilateral allies as we can. That's how I try to deal with a very, very difficult situation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we have reached our time. Today, a big applause for Professor Dan Trevler. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for sharing to us, to our students, on this very important and also super interesting topics in your lecture. And also thank you for questions and participations from all of you. I'd like to give back the stage to our MC and give a big applause to Professor Dan.
You're very, very welcome. I've enjoyed this enormously.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fauzia and Prof. Daniel. Before we end this event, we will now proceed to give the certificate from the Faculty of Economics and Business University of Indonesia to our speaker and moderator. So we would like to welcome Mr. Teguh, Ms. Fauzia, and Prof. Daniel to join us to the stage.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Also, we'd like to invite Prof. Daniel to give the Robots and AI in Your Economic Era book for the Faculty of Economic and Business University.
Oh, this is for you. Because I already have it.
Okay, thank you everyone. With the last agenda completed, that ends today's public lecture. Thank you so much for all the participants that have taken their time and to attend today's public lecture event and given their full attention. To mark the end of today's public lecture, we'd like to welcome all participants to stand up in the center of this auditorium so we can take a collective photo together. So everyone, please stand up so we can have a collective photo together. Okay, so for everyone, please stand up. Okay, so I'll conduct the photo session. Everyone, please. Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Okay, one more. In 3, 2, 1. Oke, mungkin teman-teman yang di belakang bisa pose bebas, teman-teman. Okay, thank you everyone. And as the host of today's public lecture, I would like to apologize from my deepest hearts if there were any mistakes during the event. Once again, thank you so much everyone for your attention and cooperation. We wish you a good day, good afternoon, and see you in other opportunities.